This is the voice of freedom. We are not one voice. We are many. We are your voice. But we can only be effective if you use your voice. Your voice. This is the voice of freedom. We will not hide from the truth. We will ask the hard questions until we are sure we have the truth. Welcome to the voice of freedom, where your voice will never be silenced.
Not completely sure what John would make of that. What do you think? Kids homeschooled will miss out on being gay and communist. Doesn't seem fair, hardly, does it? How are you, folks? Hope you're having a good one. And your day has not been too shabby at all. In fact, the first part of your week, Monday as well. I had a personal family issue last night. Not really an issue, just a family thing we had to attend. So there was no show last night. And I'm hopeful that Darren Bergwerf will be joining me tonight, although that was the plan for last night before the unexpected family thing got in the way. I'm just being let know that the Aussie Cossack is talking to Putin tonight, so that could be interesting too. I dare say it probably started an hour ago or very soon. One of the two timelines seem to divert me at the moment, but at any rate, you'll be listening to the Aussie Cossack do all the translations. I don't know that Putin will speak English in the meeting, but geez, I wouldn't mind popping over, and I will afterwards to have a look. Hello, Sunflower, you wonderful thing. How are you this very fine day? Hope you're going terribly well. Hello, Barbara. Scotty's in town. Kate is back in the room, and well, quite a few more. Bill's back to play. Yes, he wants to be a gay communist. Well, go back to school. They teach you that sort of shit down there. I'm absolutely sure of it. Yeah. Okay. So, right. Okay. Putin is addressing the nation. He's not talking to Aussie Cossack as such. Details of the announcement haven't been released. Messages playing from loudspeakers in the streets in Russia. All right. Well, that might make me jump ahead, I guess, to something I was going to talk about a little bit later on. But this is it. Dutch intelligence claims that Russia are preparing to attack oil and gas pipelines, submarine cables and wind farms in the North Sea. Russia versus the wind, I'm calling this. If it's true, then the Russian escalation could be a possible response to weapons being sent to the Ukraine by NATO, or it could be a possible response to the Americans blowing up Nord Stream 1 and the French being involved in the destruction of Nord Stream 2. If you are unsure of what Nord Stream 1 and 2 are, they are gas pipelines that run out of Russia and feed predominantly Germany, but other parts of Europe as well. And they travel under a great deal of water. Now, the Americans just did an exercise, just happened to be over the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. And about, I think it was 8 or 9 days later, not all that long later at any rate, the Nord Stream 1 pipeline blew up. Now, what was the exercise they were doing? They were doing an exercise on how to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. But they weren't in the area when that happened. They had departed well beforehand. It seems that they allegedly dropped some explosive on the Nord Stream 1 pipeline and a receiver. That receiver was waiting for a trigger that came from a buoy that was dropped from a radar sensor plane, whatever the interval was later, whether it be 9 days or 3 weeks or whatever it turned out to be. Once that buoy hit the ground, it made a ping, and that was enough to detonate and destroy Nord Stream 1. Now, what happened with Nord Stream 2? Well, there is interesting stories about Nord Stream 2. In fact, the destruction and debris field looks a lot like it was hit by a torpedo, and there was allegedly a French submarine seen departing the area rather rapidly after all this happened. Now, the French, big part of NATO. Yeah, big part of NATO. And the Yanks, yeah, big part of NATO too. So make from that what you will. But yes, if Vladimir Putin is addressing the nation, you can be sure that it is going to be something of a well, significant moment, I think, is probably the best way to term that. Speaking of significant moments, have you seen this one? Soldiers training to deal with protesters, soldiers with shields, unruly role players, and snapping canines, all are needed for a population protection control scenario in Townsville. A population protection control scenario. Well, we all know what that sounds and looks like, don't we? Do you want to see what it looks like? Anyway, I think you're getting the idea. Now, it's interesting if you have a look at that video, and you can go back and watch it again. The words that they are using, protecting population, protecting people. So we mustn't get too excited about what we're seeing there. I've shown it to a few people, and a few people have seen it, obviously, and got a hold of me and said, oh, God, look what they're going to do. Look what they're going to do. They're going to come in. The police are going to be backed up by the army. Well, no. I don't know. Possibly, yes. But I get the feeling from the terminology they're using there is they're protecting people. The other thing I took away from that video is that none of them were armed with anything stronger than it looked like a bit of pipe or a truncheon of some kind. That was a good thing, I think, a very good thing. So if there is anything going on in that regard, I've got a sneaking suspicion that the way that is worded it's sort of worded in our favour. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading shit into this. Maybe that's not the case. What do you think? I'll let you scroll down. So yeah, look, I really don't trust that it is for the military to be used against us, although I will admit Townsville does tend to have a reputation as being a deep state hub. But once again, the word they're using, the wordage they're using, and I've actually seen the web page. I'm pretty confident I've probably got it here somewhere. I can bring it up for you. And yeah, I have. So give me a second here, and I'll just share this screen up, and we can go through it. Now, you can see they're getting pretty well prepared. It doesn't look like they've got anything more than a truncheon and a couple of dogs to be involved with there. Soldiers with shields, unruly players, and snapping canines, all part of the test. They were from 3rd Royal Australian Regiment, or 3RAR, with the support of the 1st Military Police Battalion. They were conducting PPC training courses. The course was focused on soldiers' individual PPC training while ensuring the Ready Battle Group met the qualifications required of the ADF's Contingency Operational Response Element. I want to highlight that. The ADF's Contingency Operational Response Element. Bit of a question. What? That? But anyway, move on. Infantry sections integrated closely with military police arrest teams, detainee processing capabilities, and military working dogs to enhance security and crowd dispersion. One of the captains there from 3RAR Alpha Company said the PPC was a non-lethal combat technique to maintain control, detain, and protect populations. PPC is primarily used to assist allied or partner forces to maintain protection and control in a stability region or situation. The PPC training involved a practical run-through, as we saw. He said the role players were really pushing themselves. I don't know that they were pushing themselves. And during the full mission profile, soldiers are tested on how well they can keep a level head amongst the chaos and practice sustaining a steady level of adrenaline over an extended period of time. The training is robust, building resilience individually and as a team. When the Army tell you training is robust, it means you could go home with broken bones. So there you go. That's a little interesting thing that's been going on in Townsville, and we've all seen, and heard some stories out of there. But I wouldn't be panicking about it too yet. Those techniques are the kind of techniques that would be used against a marauding green mob or Antifa, for instance, or Black Lives Matter. If they decided to get up and start protesting again and doing things against the people, then the military could well be protecting the people, well, first, I guess. Well, I don't know. Crunch. I don't know. Look, it's possible, yes. But that would fly in the face of everything we've been told about military involvement and lockdowns. Bear in mind, there is the Marburg threat hanging over our heads, I dare say. This is a new pandemic. I think over the weekend, just prior to last weekend, there were 16 people discovered in Equatorial Guinea with Marburg virus. It's a bacteria. They have been hospitalized. 11 of them have died. Marburg is a very serious thing. If you get a hold of it, it's got a 90% kill rate. Now, of course, the WHO are getting involved in trying to find out what sort of vaccination options there are. And guess what? There are none except for mRNA vaccinations. So that'll be something that'll probably keep us going for a little while in the next week or three. I imagine there's going to be a lot more news about that, as there has been about that god-awful thing happening in Ohio. We'll get back to that in a minute. First of all, some interesting figures come out of New Zealand today. Number of COVID deaths by age and vaccination status. Now, bear in mind, these numbers only come from a period within 28 days of the person being reported as a case. So that's only within the first 28 days. The figures are through the roof, particularly in the 80 to 89 age group, but the 70 to 79 is the same. But the big limiting factor at the moment, you see their breakdown of 0 to 59. Well, there are figures suggesting the 5 to 14, 14 to 22, 25 or 23 to 44, 45 to 59 demographics are very, very, very different. And that average looks low because it's spread over 60 years of age, 60 from 0 to 60 years of age. So that figure has been reduced. You're not seeing the full toll on young people there. And in Australia, we are starting to get some, I was going to say truth, that's not true. We are getting some level of figures coming out of TGA and other reporting agencies, but we'll see what happens. Now, back to Antifa. We know that Antifa and Black Lives Matter have had some fairly large free kicks in the past. Particularly when it comes to security and police. Seattle, Boston, kind of places that spring to mind. Well, Antifa puts out pamphlets on how to derail trains, and guess what? 3 trains have now been derailed. It's a terrorist group that's been allowed to organise on Facebook and Twitter. Nobody bans them. Nobody bans them at all on Facebook and Twitter. And Biden denies that they, in fact, even exist. It's just an idea. Someone can come and train and be, attack, I'm starting to sound like Joe Bjelke-Peterson. Anyway, the FBI is off hunting aliens, and we'll get to the aliens again in the not too distant future. But of course, what's happening in Ohio is absolutely horrendous. And it's not just on the ground. There is contamination of soil and water, but the air is contaminated. This is a picture of a car park in Ohio, in East Palestine. You can see a number of dead birds, and I mean a very large number of dead birds. These birds have been flying together as a flock quite clearly and have flown through something that has killed them, stone dead, real fast. For them all to crash in a car park. I mean, that isn't... Wow. And of course, there is more of this happening around the world today. Get a load of this in the Netherlands. That's a polystyrene factory that's gone up in smoke, and that toxic smoke is capable of killing people and doing God knows what sort of damage to water, land, and air. Clearly, nothing real good for air. Where are you all you greenies? Where are you all you greenies at the moment, screaming loudly about how much shit and CO2 there is in the air? What about all this horrid crap that they're just catching fire all around the place? At least in Verona, Italy, they didn't blow up the train that crashed. It just blew up itself. But that is Verona, Italy, and that is a very large chemical spill that has been caught on fire. And that cloud is now covering a huge area around Verona in Italy. And spreading, of course, Verona being the area in general. So this is happening all over the place, folks. The Netherlands, depending on which way the wind blows, it's heading for Europe or it's heading for England or a bit of both. It's likely we're going to get something like that happen here. We should be keeping an eye out for it. In fact, we were talking on Friday night about the dangerousness of our chemical transport here in Australia. Most of the really dangerous stuff has to travel by road. They won't let it travel by train. However, I am sure that certain parts of it, and still significantly hazardous parts of it, can and do travel by train. For the most part, they'll say, it's always out in the outback. Once it leaves Brisbane, it's gone, sort of thing. And they'll have rail yards out on the edge of town where they can load these sorts of things up. But they go through some very sensitive areas, including the Brisbane water supply, the Brisbane Lockyer Valley water supply. There are truck and train railroads heading north and west out of Brisbane. And if we get, God forbid, a truck, big B double with, chemicals on board rolls over and falls into Wivenhoe Dam, we're going to be in all sorts of problems, because Wivenhoe bleeds straight into the Brisbane River, and then obviously comes down, meets the Bremer, joins that, and floods its way on out through the mouth in Brisbane. So that would be a significant issue for people in the southeast corner of Queensland. And given that our big dams are linked now, what are the bets some idiot in charge of closing the valves forgets or doesn't get the message or doesn't realise, and this shit just manages to seep through out of there into Hinsdam or somewhere like that? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it's possible, and we have to be on the lookout for things like that. And that's just in the Brisbane area. Around Melbourne, around Sydney, your dams are obviously going to be significantly targetable as well. So raise your level of interest, folks. Raise your level of surveillance. Keep an eye out on what people are doing, leaving around in those places. If you happen to be going off, dams are great places to go and have a look and spend family time, weekends, barbecues, all that kind of thing. They're wonderful things to be around. Just keep an eye out. Remember all those years ago, we were told to be aware of people leaving things in places they shouldn't be left, or things that look weird. Well, do that. Just having a bit of a look through a couple of the chats and the questions. Yeah, sorry, Jenny. Good on you. Desal in WA. Yeah, well, look, desal, isn't that a wonderful thing? There's a desalination plant on the Gold Coast too. I think it's got about 30 or 40 blokes in it that basically play cards all day because there's no need to desal anything. It never has been, really. I think it's pumped, a few testable litres or megalitres or however it works. But, yeah, bit of a waste of money. Not unlike the one in Sydney. I think this was one of those big Labor things that they did to try and please the unions there some time ago and build these big desal plants where essentially old unionists could go to retire and make a secondary earning playing cards off their mates. So I've been to that one on the Gold Coast. It's a very interesting place. Brendan Lee O'Connell. Yep. Well, one day I will talk about Brendan Lee O'Connell, but I want to learn a lot more about Brendan Lee O'Connell before we start discussing Brendan Lee O'Connell. Yes, Australia would be on that list. So is this what it comes to? Do you think it could be a World War declaration? Has anybody seen? I don't know whether or not I can bring it up on here while I'm still broadcasting. Let me just see. Okay, all right. Here he is. I'm going to just pause that for a minute. And right, so I've got the Cossack running in the background. Let me see. He hasn't begun the address just yet. He's going to address both houses of Parliament. That's Putin, not the Aussie Cossack. But, yeah, the Aussie Cossack is obviously going to translate as required. So Putin will be speaking clearly in Russian, not being interviewed by the Cossack. Cossack's just going to be repeating what he's seeing on the TV. And I have no doubt it will be significant. Apparently warm in the Russian consulate in Sydney. I don't know if you were fast enough to see it, but the Aussie Cossack let one of the old TV tricks out of the book the other day. I didn't see it. I know others that did. Apparently the camera dropped a bit or something, and they discovered that the Aussie Cossack was there either wearing a pair of shorts or in his jocks while he had the suit top on. Well, it can get very hot under lights, and just judging by his forehead at the moment, there's certainly some lights there. They may not have convinced him to wear makeup just yet to tone down that flaring. But yeah, he was clearly very hot, and I think just a tad embarrassed, poor bugger. But hey, listen, happens to the best of us, and all just a bit of fun. Sunflower, thank you so much. Just thank you. Can't thank you enough for your generosity. Folks, if you are looking to help out, we would love your help. Donate at vofhq.com. Or if you want to become a member, and the only benefit in membership is that at some point in the near future, Vince is going to tell me that I can email you all, and we might be able to have a little bit of a chat. I'm looking forward to that, but it doesn't matter what level of membership, all members will be involved in that. And our membership levels start at like $1.25. So please, if you can help, we would love your help. We're looking to try and get down to Katoomba to catch up with Michelle Palmer in the Blue Mountains there. Absolutely beautiful, my place that she's got there. We're looking at a couple of other venues too. In fact, Junee, Wagga and Wodonga are on the list. We'll be heading into Melbourne. Hopefully, Darren is arranging some time to come up to Queensland, and we'll get a show from the Gold Coast with Darren. We'll head down to Byron Bay, Coffs Harbour and Port Macquarie, and then down into Newcastle for a showdown there too. So looking forward to bringing that together. It all costs fuel, particularly. So if you can give us a bit of a handout, we will greatly appreciate it. VoFHQ.com is the website where you can help out. Appreciate it tremendously. Brendan Lee O'Connell does rock. I'm just not in a position to talk too much. I mean, I'm not going to say anything yet because I know not enough to speak with any authority. So best I say nothing at all. Some interesting things happening in Spain. Did you hear? Well, God love them. There are some very interesting people in Spain. There's a new law coming up, apparently. Bestiality may be legalized in Spain. Zoophilia is what they call it. May soon become decriminalized. Well, that doesn't mean legal, but it doesn't mean you're going to get charged for it either. Lawmakers have finalized their draft of a new penal code. I don't know if there's meant to be a bit of tongue-in-cheek there or not. A penal code amendment. Now, the legislation is part of the animal welfare bill that was approved by their lower house in the Spanish parliament earlier this month and is now awaiting final approval in the Senate. So, in animal welfare terms, it's perfectly okay for you to go and jam your wazzer up it. In France. Where? Spain. Bloody hell. Waking up at all, people. Anyone, hello, anyone in the world who's not awake yet, see anything wrong with that? Anything a bit weird? No, probably not. Makes it difficult. Thank you, Richard, for your sticker, mate. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Sunflower, you had a metal detector as a kid. I'm a Gold Rush fan, right? I love watching Gold Rush. And I don't have a metal detector. And I saw one at Cash Converters, I don't know, middle of last year sometime. And I thought, oh, gee, that might be handy while we're out on the road, stop somewhere, dig up some gold. They wanted like $700 for it. And it was like second or third hand then. So I don't know, maybe you need to find gold to buy a metal detector. Is that how that works before you can actually go out and find more gold or deeper gold or however that works? But at any rate, if you had a metal detector, I do hope you had a bit of luck with it. And Gary, I know, has a couple of metal detectors. He has had a little bit of luck. I have seen the little bit of luck he's had. I really admire those folks who head out into the bush and tromp around and just dig money up out of the ground. What terrifies me are the ones in Western Australia and probably in Central Victoria too, for that matter. But poachers, I wouldn't like to go on, and I don't know the first thing about mining or how you find where a lease ends or begins or whatever, but I would hate to be on somebody else's lease and digging up gold and have them come and find me. Not because I particularly would have to keep the gold. Obviously, if they came to me, I would give it to them because I would only be digging on their site in complete error. But I don't know that they wait around to ask that, do they? There's plenty of, deep old mine holes out there that you could wind up at the bottom of very quickly, I would have thought. So that's kept me away from gold mining unless it was at Sovereign Hill in Ballarat. And that's not really fair. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. And I think they use fool's gold when they seed the creek there anyway. Well, I don't know. They may not. But I think it's been a long time since they dug anything good out of Ballarat. Although they say that there is a huge amount of gold still underground under Ballarat. It's just that Ballarat is so honeycombed with drives that to knock out a few walls or to mine it further would cause severe chances of collapse, taking half of Ballarat city with it. This would not be a good thing, I dare say. So they don't allow any further mining in or under Ballarat. Sovereign Hill is just I believe it has a small working dig there somewhere that is in a safe area, but that's about it. Well worth going to visit, though, if you happen to be going through Victoria and and want to learn a bit about our gold history, or at least the one they'd have us believe. And of course, the Eureka Stockade. Can learn all about that there too, which is probably, which is probably fitting. Carol, when is Hoodie? I don't know what Hoodie's saying, but allegedly he's lying about the chemtrails. Well, if he hasn't stopped or figured out yet that a contrail and a chemtrail are two different things, and the thing he's trying to con you with is a contrail, in my opinion. I don't know how he can keep pushing it, but clearly the message hasn't seeped through from the goat fucking apron wearing people above him that he needs to change the rhetoric a little bit. Poor animals. Listen, speaking of animals, now Sandy and Barry, two of the most amazingly wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people you will ever meet. Now, they have a property where they save donkeys, but it's not just donkeys. Now, while I was down in New South Wales recently, caught up with Sandy and Baz, we are going to go back there. We're going to film a story. And what I would like to try and do, if possible, is to raise some money to get some hay, some feed for the sanctuary. Trying to get a semi-trailer load of hay. That will feed them. That will feed the donkeys, at least, for quite a number of months, about 6 months. So I'm trying to raise a little bit of money for them. If you are keen on helping there, then email me, carl@vofhq.com. I have details of an account you can help them out with. But we are looking to try and get that feed in the not too distant future so that they have it when they need it and aren't panicking for it when they require it. So the other big story to come out of the donkey sanctuary is, in fact, another sanctuary. G'day to Jacqueline, who's in Victoria. Now, I just out of pure fluke, while I was talking to Sandy and Baz, I got a message through, I think it was on Facebook or one of the video chats or whatever, from a young lady named Jacqueline, who's running a refuge, a place where animals, a sanctuary, if you like, can be taken in Victoria. And she was noticing a big uptake in the requirement for animals to get some support. Why? Because a lot of their fully jabbed up owners were dying. And of course, family comes in, nobody wants to look after the animals. Now, these animals range in size from, mice to horses, cattle. There's all sorts of things. I dare say they'll sell the cattle, maybe some of the horses. But if the horses are not really saleable or working animals, they're just living out their lives, then, where they can, through uncaring families or from no other reason other than there's nowhere else for them to go, they can wind up in the glue factory. So we are trying to avert this at all costs. Now, one of the other problems it's having is there are a number of carer organisations around the country whose carers are dying because they're all fully squirted up and probably lining up for number 5. This doesn't mean that the caring of animals comes to a halt, but it does mean that people are needing to step up. So I just wanted to mention Sandy and Baz from the Donkey Sanctuary and Jacqueline and from her sanctuary. I can't think of the name at the moment, if there is in fact one. However, looking to try and help these people as much as we can. And if you are able to rehome animals, then we might be able to help you. There's some interesting news coming out of the RSPCA. I forget now exactly where. No, I do remember. It was in the Blue Mountains. Now, apparently the RSPCA Katoomba is closing down, and they're closing down on the 1st of March. What happens to the animals? God knows. What's happening to the building? It's going to be torn down and replaced with something else. They probably sold the land to put a condo on it or something. Beautiful view over the Blue Mountains, maybe. I don't know. At any rate, absolutely friggin' pathetic. The RSPCA closes down a branch in the Blue Mountains where there is a significant need for animal welfare and some of the other services that the RSPCA offer. It's been my experience that the RSPCA are very good when they are put in charge of something. And let me use an example of, donkeys. When a number of donkeys, and I mean a significant number, I think there were over 40 donkeys, were left homeless, feedless when their owner passed away. Their owner lived on an island off the coast of Queensland and had made provision for the donkeys. In fact, had made over $1 million worth of provision for the donkeys. I think it was something like $1.3 million was to be given to the people who took over the care of the donkeys, so that would pay for the care of the donkeys. What happened? Well, the police called the RSPCA and said, oh, look, there's a bunch of donkeys on that island. And when the RSPCA discovered there was $1.3 million attached to that, well, they fired up in a big way and raced off immediately to organise a barge and get those 40-plus donkeys herded on there and back safely to the mainland, where that $1.3 million could be put to wonderful use looking after them. Except it wasn't. The $1.3 million stayed with the RSPCA. The donkeys wound up, for the most part, at the donkey sanctuary with Sandy and Baz. No money, no nothing. Just here's 41 donkeys. They only found out about the $1.3 million bequest way after the RSPCA had spent it. So I'm not too disheartened to hear that the RSPCA bastards are going down. If that is the case, I think they don't deserve our support. They certainly don't look after the animals when there is a bequeath going to them, or a bequest, not a bequeath, a bequest going to them. Certainly not in that case. Maybe they do when, it's, I'll give you $20 a week to look after the cat or the dog. But no. Requesting that the RSPCA do anything with your bequest and your finances is a waste of time. And I don't think this person did request it. They just happened to pass away on the island and were discovered. And police called the RSPCA. Who else do you call? Well, we're going to have to develop other places for people to call, folks, because ain't nobody going to be answering those phones in the not too distant future. So yes, if you can help, give me an email at carl@vofhq.com, and I will link you up with Sandy and Baz and Jacqueline, and we will try and get something happening. It'd be wonderful if we can get enough. I don't know what hay bale costs these days. Back when I used to go and pick them up during school summer holidays, hello to you and Wheeler. He and I used to have a hay carting business in the summer once we got strong enough to lift a few hay bales. And, I think we were getting like 2 cents a bale back in those days. I don't know what they'd be charging for these days. And I guess they've now got these bigger bale machines too, the big roll bales and big square bales. But if anybody has any idea on the cost of those bales, and anybody who might be interested in taking a semi-trailer from wherever those bales may lie to the donkey sanctuary, which I can tell you is down towards Singleton, or over towards, or up towards, depending on where you are in the world. And we'll endeavour to hook you all together and make sure that happens. And if we can raise a few bucks to help put a few more bales on that truck, we would be very happy to do so. What else is going on in the world? I did have a few things written down here. Oh yeah, backyard veggies. So, we've all got a bit of a thing at the moment for backyard veggies. My daughter has gone absolutely bunter when it comes to growing stuff at the moment, flowers and vegetables, thankfully. She's pretty happy with the flowers. They're doing a great job at the moment, but there's something coming along and eating them at night. Aphids? I don't know. Caterpillars? Can't see them. Moths? Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, driving her mad. If you're into a bit of gardening, then be careful, because at the moment it seems that there are some pretty ugly things going on in the backyard. A highly invasive and destructive pest that attacks the roots of vegetables and can cause significant crop damage has been discovered in a Queensland backyard. Now, it's highly invasive and very rare and aggressive pest. Now, where did the rare and aggressive pest come from all of a sudden? I don't know. So maybe we need to look at some not so rare and natural herbicides that will kill that pest. Stone mother's dead. That would be a fairly useful thing, I would have thought, to keep us going. We talked about Russia and the wind, and Vladimir Putin has just begun his state speech. It does seem like it could be fairly significant. So tell you what, we might shoot off and go and have a watch at that and come back later if there is something better to report. I did have a couple of other videos here I wanted to show you. In fact, this is one I thought you would get a little bit of a kick out of. I don't know it's a kick. It sort of makes me kind of sick to watch it and kind of not sick to watch it all at the same time. All of them get a medal, but every one of these people is listed on the Epstein register, on the Epstein flight register. Every one of them. But Obama gives them all a medal. So every one of them listed on the Epstein flight logs, and a whole heap more. 2,024 pages. Now, that's not how many people are on the flight logs. That's just how long the entire file is. You've got to sort through that to get the names, and the names are at various different places through them. It's not easy. There is a redacted page somewhere, but I'm yet to find it. So when it becomes that way, I will bring it to you. But until then, I'm sort of writing names down. It's making life a little bit difficult. At any rate, it seems like there might be a life-changing moment happening at the moment, folks. And I guess it might be worthwhile popping over and having a bit of a look at what can happen. Before I leave you tonight, though, I just wanted to share this with you. The boomers, they can't believe that they wore bell-bottoms. Gen X can't believe that I wore my hair like that. The millennials, I can't believe I was goth and emo. And Gen Z will be saying in years to come, I can't believe I cut me dick off. Well, just goes to show, folks, not all the dickheads, not all of them are on the road, hey?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!